Hey everyone, welcome back to the Deep Dive. We're always on the lookout for those hidden forces that shape our lives, and today we're going to tackle one that's, well, it's kind of sneaky. We're diving into habits.
Habits.
We got really intrigued by this podcast episode, Tiny Habits, Big Results, How to Transform Your Life, and it really got us thinking, how do we actually make those lasting changes we all crave? The kind that really stick.
It is fascinating, right? How often do we set these big goals for ourselves and then, life kind of gets in the way? This episode dives into the mechanics of how change really happens. And it's not always those big dramatic moments we think of.
Exactly. Right off the bat, they hit you with this quote from James Clear's Atomic Habits. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your habits. I mean, wow, that's powerful. We spend so much time setting these huge goals, but maybe it's the everyday stuff, the habits, that really call the shots.
It's almost like those habits are the foundation, the underlying code running in the background of our lives.
So that's what we want to explore today, this whole idea of tiny habits, how to use them to actually grow and make those positive changes we want. We've all been there, right? Super motivated one day, then can't get off the couch the next.
Motivation is... well, it's a bit of a slippery character, isn't it? Comes and goes. But habits, those are more like the steady, reliable friend you can always count on.
All right, so let's get into it. The episode makes this really compelling argument. Habits are the real deal, like the actual engines driving our results.
Yeah.
Let's say you want to get in better shape. That's the goal. But what really gets you there? Day after day.
It's not just wishing for it, is it?
No, it's the habit, the actual doing, making movement a part of your day, whether it's a walk, some quick exercises, whatever works for you. And it's not just fitness, right? Think about writing a book. It's that daily habit of writing, even a little bit, that gets you to the finish line.
Or even something like improving your mental health. It's the little things, the habits of mindfulness, maybe journaling, taking a few minutes to breathe, that add up over time.
It's like that saying, Rome wasn't built in a day, right? Those tiny bricks, laid one by one, eventually become something amazing.
Exactly. Big changes don't just magically appear. It's the accumulation of all those small, consistent actions. It's like, the power of compound interest, but for your whole life.
And that leads us to the heart of this episode, tiny habits. And they really do mean tiny. We're talking about actions so small, so quick, that they barely register as effort. Often less than 2 minutes.
It's like tricking your brain into making good choices almost. By making the starting point so easy, there's no resistance.
Exactly. They even give some great examples. Instead of saying, I'm going to run 5K every day, start with, I'll put on my running shoes every morning. That's it.
Makes it a lot less daunting, doesn't it?
So much. Or if you want to meditate for 30 minutes, start with, I'll take 3 deep breaths when I wake up. And get this, to reach that goal of reading 50 books a year, you could start with just, I'll read 1 page a day.
1 page. Brilliant, right. It almost feels silly not to do it. And what's interesting? Sometimes just that little act of starting can create its own momentum.
It's like instead of waiting for motivation to strike, you take action and then the motivation follows. It's kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Absolutely. It flips the script, doesn't it? You're not waiting for permission to start. You just start. And that little spark can ignite a whole fire.
So how do we actually build these tiny habits into our lives? Well, the episode lays out this really handy formula from BJ Fogg. Anchor plus action plus celebrate.
Sounds almost like a recipe, doesn't it? And just like with any good recipe, it's all about getting the ingredients right.
Right. So the anchor is about linking your tiny habit to something you already do regularly, like without fail. It becomes your trigger.
Like after I brush my teeth.
Exactly. And the action is the tiny habit itself. So after I brush my teeth, I'll do 2 push-ups. Just 2.
2 push-ups? Anyone can do 2 push-ups. But see, it's not about the number. It's about establishing the pattern.
And here's the part that might seem a little, strange. You got to celebrate. Acknowledge that you did the tiny habit, even if it feels silly. Give yourself a little yes, a smile, a feeling of, hey, I did it.
Seems small, but it's actually really important. It creates this positive association in your brain, like, this feels good, let's do it again.
So to bring this to life, share a personal story. I'm trying to start a journaling habit, right? But every night, I'd aim for 15 minutes and just, felt like this chore. Then I found this tiny habit idea. My anchor became my morning coffee. So after I drink my morning coffee, I'll write 1 sentence in my journal.
1 sentence.
1 sentence. That's it.
That's it. And you know what? More often than not, once I wrote that sentence, I'd keep going. But even on those days when it was just 1 sentence, I still did it. And over time, it became a real habit.
See, that's the beauty of it. No pressure, just consistency. You're not setting yourself up for failure. You're setting yourself up for success, one tiny step at a time. Now, the episode also talks about some common mistakes people make with habits, which I think is super helpful to hear. One is starting too big. We get all gung-ho and try to change everything at once, but then, poof, the motivation fizzles out.
We often underestimate the power of small changes, don't we? You want instant results, but real change is usually more like a slow and steady climb.
Right. And another mistake is, well, relying too much on motivation. We all know motivation comes and goes.
Like the weather, right?
Exactly. So the episode emphasizes that habits, those automatic actions, are way more reliable in the long run. You don't need a burst of motivation to brush your teeth, do you?
Nope. It's just something you do. And that's the kind of power we're trying to tap into with tiny habits. Making good choices, well, almost second nature.
And the final pitfall is this idea of needing to be perfect. We miss a day and it's like, game over, I failed. But the episode makes a really important point. It's okay to miss a day. Just get back on track the next day. It's about progress, not perfection.
We're all human, right? We all slip up. It's not about beating ourselves up. It's about getting back in the saddle and continuing the journey.
So, to sum it all up for you, you don't need massive life-altering changes to see real progress. It's the small, consistent steps, the tiny habits that add up over time. It's like, instead of saying, I want to be healthier, you start becoming the kind of person who just naturally incorporates movement into their day. It's a shift in identity.
It's like your actions start shaping your beliefs about yourself, and those beliefs then make it easier to keep up those actions. It's this beautiful feedback loop.
So here's a final thought to ponder. What's one tiny, almost ridiculously small step you could take today towards something you want to change? And then commit to doing that consistently. And just observe. You might be surprised how much power lies in that one small action, repeated day after day.
It's about planting those seeds, nurturing them, and then watching them grow. You might just be amazed by what blossoms.
Thanks for joining us today on The Deep Dive. We hope this has given you some new tools and some fresh inspiration to make those positive changes you've been dreaming of. And remember, it all starts with that one tiny step.
Until next time.
See you then.